Hello and welcome to another Brawl video. This week my supporters on Patreon voted for Captain America First Avenger as our commander in this red, white and blue equipment deck. Captain America is a 3-mana 4/4 with a throw and catch abilities. First we're going to want to catch an equipment at the beginning of combat in our turn. We can attach an equipment we control onto Captain America for free, and then at some point we can throw an equipment that's attached to Captain America. By unattaching it, we now get to deal damage equal to that equipment's mana value and select up to 3 different targets to split up that damage. So Captain America gives us built-in removal, which is often a weakness of equipment decks since they don't have room for a ton of interaction, and it also saves us a lot of mana equipping stuff, so both very useful abilities. So then if we take a look at our deck breakdown, I've split it up into a few different categories, starting with a bit of extra mana acceleration, mostly 2-mana talismans and signets, so we can deploy our hand a bit faster. Then we get to the equipment, all the way from 1 mana up to 7, lots of different keywords that we now also get to search up using our next category, and these are the equipment tutor effects. So these are pretty cheap, 1 and 2 mana, to get whichever equipment we want and put it into our hand. So then having a couple different swords that grant protection from certain colors can be very useful if we can search them up in the matchups where we need them. And then we've got a few more effects that help us equip things for free in case Captain America gets answered. These are backup win conditions as well. We also have a few additional card draw engines, since that's one thing that our commander does not provide. And then our miscellaneous section has a little bit more interaction, some instant speed removal spells, as well as training grounds, which is quite synergistic with our commander, discounting the throw ability by 2 mana. So now it's only 1 mana to unattach something and deal damage, which can be a nice source of repeatable interaction. So yeah, that's our deck in a nutshell. Now for the deep dive, starting with our mana acceleration. Mox Opal is pretty nice when we have all these equipment as artifacts to enable Metalcraft, even have some artifact lands in the mana base to help enable it. And then of course we've got the various signets and talismans in our 3 colors to help us ramp out our hand, as well as the Iron Crag, which can maybe turn into an equipment after playing a legendary creature, so that also has additional synergy throughout. And Dalakos can make 2 colorless mana that we can only spend to cast artifacts or to activate abilities of artifacts, so still very useful with our equipment. And then now equipped creatures we control also have flying and haste, so there's a bit more synergy there as well. Then moving on to the actual equipment, we've got a Basilisk Collar for Death Touch and Lifelink. If we give our commander Lifelink and now use the throw ability with a different equipment, we also gain life equal to the damage dealt, so that's another cool interaction. And the damage will also be Death Touch damage, so we only need to assign 1 damage to every creature that we're targeting to take them out. Then Colossus Hammer is one of the cheaper equipment that have a very prohibitive equip cost normally, so now that we get to attach it for free and give +10/+10, it's going to be very powerful alongside our commander. Then we've got Tentacles as kind of a weaker version of Colossus Hammer, but a bit more realistic to equip manually. We've got Shadow Spear for Trample and Lifelink. Lion Sash to give us some Graveyard Hate, which can also be a useful tutor target against Reanimator strategies. Reality Chip can provide some card advantage if we reconfigure it. There's Chainsaw, has a bit of removal, dealing 3, can also pick up additional ref counters as creatures die. The Conqueror's Flail can be very useful against blue decks that rely on counter spells, because once equipped our opponent won't be able to cast spells in our turn, as well as maybe giving a creature +3/+3 if we have our commander in play. Then Swiftfoot Boots gets the nod over Lightning Greaves, because Shroud can be a bit awkward if you only have 1 creature in play, because then you're not going to be able to target it with additional equipment. Hexproof solves that problem. Then there's the Jite, which can be very powerful against creature strategies, especially when those creatures are pretty small, as you can start mowing them down with a -1/-1 ability. Cryptic Code to make our commander unblockable, normally very tricky to get onto a specific creature, very easy to do so with Captain America. And Assimilation Aegis can exile an opposing creature for as long as we control this equipment. Then there's Underill, which can also make additional spirit tokens. That way if our commander gets removed, we still have more creatures to equip. There's a Mithril Coat for Indestructible, can even play it at instant speed. And then a collection of swords. These all give +2/+2 and protection from 2 different colors, so these are very useful to tutor up in certain matchups. Feast and Famine can also make the opponent discard while untapping our lands if we connect. Fire and Ice is pro red and blue, can deal 2 damage and draw a card. And then Forge and Frontier, giving pro red and green. If we connect, we get to exile the top 2 cards of our library, can play those until end of turn, and can also play an additional land. Then the Hammer of Thor is also very synergistic with Captain America, can also take out a creature when it enters, and then once equipped for just 1 mana onto our worthy Captain America, it doubles all damage equipped creature would deal, including from its activated ability if we throw some other equipment, but throwing the hammer for 3 mana and re-equipping it for 1 is still very nice, as we get to split up 4 damage now. The Leyline Axe is especially powerful if it's in our opening hand, giving +1/+1 double strike and trample. The Arsenal is another reason to include as many artifacts as possible, including those artifact lands, giving +2/+2 to the equipped creature for each artifact we control, comes attached to a 1/1 hero token. Battle Skull also comes attached to a creature, this time a 0/0 germ token, giving it +4/+4 vigilance and lifelink. And then Caldra Complete, another living weapon equipment, giving the germ +5/+5, first strike, trample, indestructible haste, and when it deals combat damage to a creature, exile that creature, so it's going to be a nightmare for any opposing creatures to block. And then we also have Ultima Weapon, giving +7/+7 when the equipped creature attacks, destroy target creature an opponent controls. So with Captain America, we can hopefully attach it right away, attack, destroy creature, and then now if we throw Ultima Weapon for 3 mana, we can repeatedly start dealing 7 damage. So that's also a very nice answer to creature strategies. Then we get to our tutor effects. I did also include Enlightened Tutor, even though it doesn't specifically get equipment and it does go on the top of the deck. It's still very efficient at just 1 mana at instant speed. The Steel Shaper's Gift is a new addition at sorcery speed, finding whatever equipment we want for just 1 mana. And then at 2 mana there's Open the Armory. Stoneforge Mystic is especially powerful since we can also use its activated ability to put those equipment onto the battlefield, so especially nice with a more expensive living weapon equipment. There's Cloud, which can also get whatever we want, and then can also maybe double triggers from those equipment, like the various swords if they're attached to them. There's Fighter Class, which we can also level up to discount those equip costs. And Kellen can also use its Adventure to get an equipment, and then later a 3 mana 2/2 with double strike. And then we've got a few more ways to attach equipment for free. With Sigarda's Aid, we can even play them at instant speed, and when they enter, we get to attach them to a creature right away. And then at 2 mana, there's Frodo. When he attacks, can attach an equipment with mana value 2 or 3. So we cannot attach a Colossus Hammer to Frodo for free, but still very nice with the various swords. Raban, when he attacks, can attach whatever equipment we want to whatever creature we want. And then there's Forge Anew, which can maybe get back an equipment from our graveyard. And then once each turn, we can attach it for 0 mana. And then at 6 mana, there's a Gilgamesh, which is also just a very nice curve topper if you need to recover from a board wipe or what have you. And then when it enters or attacks, we can look at the top 6 cards of our library, put any number of equipment from among them onto the battlefield, and we can even attach one of them onto Gilgamesh for free. So this one's especially powerful if we can also give it haste right away. And then we've got a few more sources of card advantage. Esper Sentinel's decent as an artifact creature. If we can increase its power, we can also increase its tax. Then Sram draws a card when we cast an equipment spell, whereas the Mighty Thor draws when an equipment enters. And when she attacks, she can also flicker a non-token artifact or creature, so that can also maybe help us draw additional cards or re-enable some enter the battlefield abilities. There's Akiri, can pay a white to remove an equipment to make that creature indestructible until end of turn, and when an equipped creature attacks, we also get to draw. There's a Jorah, drawing whenever we cast a historic spell, so that includes all our artifacts as well as legendary creatures. And then Nahiri gets a discount through affinity for equipment, and then when an equipped creature attacks, we get to exile the top card of our library and play it until end of turn, can even play equipment for free that way. And then our miscellaneous section has a few more removal spells with Swords to Plowshares, a Lightning Bolt, and a Rebel Salvo, another affinity for equipment card. We've got Brainstorm to combine with our various shuffle effects to improve our hand. Then Training Grounds will discount our throw ability down to just 1 mana. Mother of Runes, another important way of protecting our key threats, giving them protection until end of turn from a certain color. And then I've got 2 sweepers. Avatar's Wrath is pretty synergistic in an equipment deck, since we can still keep our Captain America with all the equipment attached to it on the battlefield, while airbending everything else, so that can be a nice tempo play to buy us more time. And then Day of Judgment is a bit more drastic. Possible we can make our Captain America indestructible with a Mithril Coat, but this is another nice reset button against some of the green decks that can maybe be off to a fast start, and then we do need a way to catch back up. And then the mana base includes the untapped artifact lands to power up some of our synergies, as well as channel lands for a bit more interaction. Otherwise, couple basics, lots of dual lands, including ones we can fetch with all the fetch lands, so we have perfect mana, and occasionally we can get a tapped surveil land early on to improve our draw steps, so that can also come in handy. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the draw, facing Dionus, a powerful mono-green elf commander. So having one of our 2 sweepers is pretty key here. Can maybe catch us back up, since we're gonna fall behind early. Don't love the rest of my hands, so just keeping based on the strength of Avatar's Wrath. Not as good as Day of Judgment, but can still maybe turn the game around. Now Swords to Plowshares is a good one. Probably gonna save it for something more impactful than a Sentinel Stalwart. Innkeeper's Talents. Not a creature, so they are diversifying a little bit. But now we get to Surveil. And get white-blue tapped. Swiftfoot Boots doesn't seem all that important, since we can pretty safely tap out for Captain America on turn 3. And then I don't really need the Flail in this matchup, don't expect too many instants. So it would just be for 3 extra power and toughness. Reality Chip can maybe be more beneficial, helping us play off the top. Cryptic Coat incoming to make unblockable. And now Marwyn, that is a dangerous card. Is it dangerous enough for me to throw off my curve and swords instead of play Captain America? Maybe. Because especially with the talents, that adds up very quickly. And then next turn I could play Dionus, tap this twice. I don't think I can allow that, sadly. And then I guess we'll play the Flail after all. But yeah, I didn't get to play Captain America this turn, so also a bit of a setback. Maybe we'll end up playing Jorah first and kind of play the card advantage game when casting our historic spells. Eladamri also very scary. Can cheat out some expensive spells. I'll level up the talents for Award 1. I don't think it's quite time to Avatar's Wrath, since we don't have enough momentum on the board. Could still play Captain America and then play Odawara with a equipped Reality Chip. At this point, maybe I'm still better off going for Jorah. And then we get to draw a few extra cards. Do I see myself channeling this? Maybe to reset the Innkeeper's Talent. So then I don't want to necessarily play it off the top right now. Yeah, let's go for Jorah. And there's Dionus. They can still tap and then untap the Sentinel. And getting extra counters. And the Smuggler's Copter is next, which is another way of tapping their creatures to enable Dionus. Alright, so the Avatar's Wrath is becoming more and more appealing. The more creatures I commit myself, also the more get bounced. But I could play Captain America. And then maybe wait it out for one more turn. And drawing off Jorah. Island on top, so I can equip the Reality Chip at least. Play the island and then maybe something else, second main. And Jorah unlikely to block, so may as well attack. I can still play the Sentinel. Undraw Akiri coming up. Alright, so our board is looking a bit better to maybe set up the Wrath now. If I don't die this turn, which is entirely possible. Opponent may be looking to level up the talent all the way. So then I could channel this for 2 mana to bounce the talents and then still Wrath. Opponent playing an Archivist off the top with Eladamri's ability. They still have a lot of extra mana if they use Stalwart and Sentinel. And they can also go drawing with a Copter. So no full level up, but a full attack. I think I'm fine jumping with this Sentinel. I could technically block with Captain America, so it's possible they have some pump spell up their sleeve. So this is a bit risky. But I guess then we can just Avatar's Wrath, keep Jorah in play. Alright, that worked. And get to untap. Play a land off the top. Chainsaw doesn't seem all that great right now. So I can shuffle that away. See if we find something better. Plains is good enough. Well, that's an actual Day of Judgment on the top of the deck. I think I save that and still go for a Bounce Talents and Avatar's Wrath right now. But that is pretty funny. Keep Captain America. Especially if they do have something to make their team indestructible. Their Avatar's Wrath gets around it, whereas Day of Judgment does not. Okay, that works. So now we get to equip Flail for free. And hit for 7. So we're making some progress. Only 2 mana to replay Jorah with a bunch of legendaries to draw off of it as well. So we're definitely winning the card advantage game right now. Replay the talents, since they cannot replay their exiled creatures right now. They could attack with a Copter if they'd like. Which does play around the Day of Judgment quite nicely as a vehicle. One of the few constructed playable ones. Cryptic Code's going to be more impactful once they leave some blockers back. So I can play the fetch. Life total does matter, so the 1 damage could add up. So Talisman on top. So I could go for Jorah, play Talisman, draw. And then still play some other cards afterwards. Let's see. And draw Hallowed Fountain. Great Furnace on top. Okay, so I can shuffle that away. Just get basic islands, which I guess I don't have left. So then it has to be Thundering Falls, so then Nahiri is no longer an option. Since we actually drew the Hallowed Fountain, so maybe should have responded after seeing Hallowed Fountain in full control. Could have responded to Jorah's card draw trigger. So still like Akiri, or do we Signet? I mean, if the plan is to Day of Judgment next turn potentially, then maybe I prefer the Signet, see if we can find more interaction. Draw another Signet, and now a Brainstorm. I guess we'll just keep it going this way. Alright, so hit for 7, have 1 Jorah back on defense, and hope the Copter doesn't kill me. And then next turn, there's a pretty good chance that we can make the Captain lethal with the Cryptic Codes, can also activate its ability to maybe burn them out. So Dionus shows up into Eladamri. And a Stalwart. Copter can attack. So the Copter is going to go up to 5 after picking up another counter from the talent, so we are very close to dead. but play another land. And the hammer could also deal the final blow here. Draw lightning bolts. Take out Dionus. And then with cryptic codes making Captain America unblockable, we should have it. Yeah, Jorah's pretty fun if you can get her going. Equip the worthy Captain America. Cryptic code for free. And then 2 times 8 damage is 16. So that'll be more than enough. Awesome, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw, facing Raph and Mikey, one of our worst matchups since we have little instant speed removal, although I actually found Swords to Plowshares in our opener. So the rest of my hand's pretty bad, but I think I'm still gonna keep just because of the swords being one of our best answers. Chainsaw is not going to find many targets since they usually avoid cheap creatures, so they can only hit something big. And Training Grounds is missing a more expensive equipment to deal more damage. Also missing red mana. So yeah, it's not a pretty hand, but hopefully Swords will buy us enough time where it still works out. And Brainstorm I can maybe cast the next turn. Still probably better off starting with a Signet. Opponent did take a few mulligans. There's a small chance they have an Ironcrag Feat next turn to already cast their commander. I think I should still Signet here. They do not have triple red, so Ironcrag Feat not a concern. But now with the Vastwood Surge they can already cast a commander next turn. And then they might have the mana to redeploy it soon enough. Bloodstained Mire, not a bad draw. I think I do actually, instead of playing Captain America, use the Brainstorm to get rid of some of these bad cards and then shuffle. Although it is going to be telling that I'm not tapping out. So then Chainsaw goes, and don't hate to sort of Feast and Famine with Double Strike. I don't think Training Grounds is gonna really come into play. I would need to chuck 2 artifacts combining mana value 7 to deal with Raph and Mikey. It is possible, but it's still very mana intensive. Don't know if Bolt is much better, to be fair, but yeah, I guess we'll just pass here. And then they may suspect something's up. Alright, opponent's just going for it. So that's gone. And it might take them a turn or 2 to redeploy. So this is our chance to get on the board with Captain America. Let's get blue-red. Mox Opal seems good. We've got an artifact land. So play the cap, and then I can still play Sword and equip. And next turn with Leyline Axe with Double Strike. That's a lot of damage. And a lot of discard, potentially. Spelunking. They do have a land, so next turn they can replay Raph and Mikey. So what's my plan to stop it? Yeah, I guess if I go for Leyline Axe, tapping my lands, I'll get to untap them. So then chucking a Leyline Axe plus Lightning Bolt can still deal with Raph and Mikey. And then I guess it doesn't hurt to play the Mighty Thor as well here. So that's 3 and then 4. Untap 5 lands so I can activate plus Bolt. Okay, so we're kind of cooking here. Could technically use my mana after the first untap, but There's no real benefit. I guess I'll just float the mana anyway. Okay, so opponent discarded Terror of Mount Velas. And now I've got a Leyline Axe to throw alongside the Lightning Bolt with the Thor art, quite fitting. So yeah, had we kept the training grounds, it also could have come in handy here. As opposed to the Lightning Bolt, and our opponent scoops it up. Awesome, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the play, facing Hei Bai, the 5-color shrines. What do we think of our hand? Could use an extra land or two. Don't have anything to immediately equip onto Frodo, but I can search something up, even something that gives protection from green, which could be useful. Yeah, I think I'll try it. Start with a tapped Deserted Beach. Alright, another Talisman. So then I'm more incentivized to play one now. Let's get a red-white. And then next turn I can double spell Talisman plus 2-drop at the very least. Opponent surveils. And plays a Might. Alright, that one's problematic since it can blow up one of our equipment. Although now swords could be an answer. Yeah, I guess go Talisman into Frodo. I doubt our opponent's keeping up a green mana or blowing up a Talisman right away. If they do, it's not a disaster. But especially if I draw lanes, we could maybe fighter class, get some relevant equipment, and immediately suit up Frodo. Opponent with a temple. And they are looking to maybe use the Might. Especially since we missed a lane drop. So then they don't have it for an equipment. Okay, so could go fighter class and get an equipment. Not sure yet which one. Normally I would want to get protection from green. I could also get Umezawa's Jite and still equip it right away. If I get a protection sword, then I can still play SRAM right now alongside the fighter class. Could also just play Captain America, but since we already have Frodo, that feels a bit redundant. So I think I will go SRAM plus fighter class this turn. And then get something exciting for 2 or 3 mana. And I think Feast and Famine versus Forge and Frontier are kind of the options. I've got a decent amount of mana I get to maybe use, so I'm not hating Feast and Famine. Helps us attack past Hei Bai. Opponent with a kicked Aang's Journey to get whatever shrine they want. Presumably the 5-color one. Goes for Hidden Cruelty instead. So play the sword, and then could just tap all my lanes. Get to draw SRAM. Finding another lane, which I'm not really gonna use here. Could pay for the equip cost, but may as well use the ability. Opponent will have to discard, I get to untap my lanes. And then I don't mind playing the hammer to draw SRAM as opposed to playing Captain and maybe overextending into a board wipe. And then we can keep up Swords to Plowshares. Alright, so that was a pretty good turn. And then it's only 1 mana to equip, so I guess I could do that now. Since Frodo doesn't equip 4 mana equipment for free. So Death Touch is not really going to help them. Protection from black means they can't target with a Shrine. They can take out SRAM, of course, but that's manageable. Okay, so main phase 1, I can play the Captain. And then I could even unequip something to take out Hidden Cruelty. But don't know if that's really necessary. I can just hit for 8 with Frodo and take it from there. Say no to Mountain. Could have also leveled up the fighter class. Suppose what I could have done is still equip onto the Captain, pay 3 mana to deal with Hidden Cruelty, and then when Frodo attacks it can re-equip the sword for free anyways. So that would have worked out had I fetched for an untapped land. But again, I don't think Hidden Cruelty is really a concern. Get to untap my land, so then I may as well level this up. And pass a turn. Unless I want to equip the Captain with Feast and Famine, which also makes sense. So it's better protected. And then we get a 2 mana discount, so I can do so for free. Okay, pass a turn. So then now I can still unattach for 3 mana to take out Hidden Cruelty. And yeah, especially the Hammer is a good one to unattach since it's a 4-drop. So then can let them potentially pay for Hidden Cruelty. And then respond, unattach the Hammer, take this out, or rather, I can even target my opponent with it. Two each. I mean, it's not surprising that Thor's Hammer is such a great combo with Captain America, if you know the lore. Okay, opponent had an Essence Flux. So I guess that'll keep it alive and still take out Frodo. Fair enough. Makes sense for them to have some flicker effects for Hei Bai. But I don't think Frodo will be missed too much. I can re-equip the Hammer. And we want to use a land since we'll get to untap them. Play Collar, equip. Again, everything's free with fighter class. And then we can still use Captain America's ability to remove the Hidden Cruelty, or I can just go face now after we attack. This is 12 damage. Tear Asunder, going for the sword. So then I can at least unattach it. And then go 1 and 2. Sword down. Opponent still takes 8. And then if I unattach the Hammer, I could deal another 4. And then re-equip for free. The damage also gaining life with the Basilisk Collar, since our creature has lifelink, so then the damage is also lifelink damage. So a lot of neat synergies. Opponent finally runs out Hei Bai. But it's probably too little too late at this point. So yeah, probably could have optimized a couple turns a bit better, making full use of all the free equips. But I'm not too worried. They might have saved another flicker effect for Hei Bai. Ephemerate. So they can find another shrine, maybe gain some more life. But at this point we can just burn them out. Although Avatar's Wrath is also a good way to clear a bunch of tokens. So we get to untap, activate, and equip the hammer, and go upstairs. Alright, sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Rofellos. Very scary commander, although we do maybe have a chance with a GT if we can get that going quickly. So I'll keep. And then the Mox Opal can maybe speed things up as well. Still gonna start with tapped falls, and then next turn I can play a Talisman, play the Tentacles, and then Metalcraft is enabled. They do have a turn 1 Halfling. I guess the Mox doesn't do anything at the moment, so could have held it for one more turn. And Gwenna, so they're going without Rofellos. Sword of Fire and Ice could be very helpful as well. So let's see, play Talisman, can still play Captain America. And equip the Tentacle for free. Now an 8/8, and then next turn we can start mowing down some of the opponent's creatures. And there's Rofellos. And a Training Grounds is also very synergistic with a Captain's ability. So what do we like, GT or Sword of Fire and Ice? GT guarantees that I answer Rofellos with the equipment, although with Training Grounds we have other ways of answering Rofellos. So maybe start here, see if there's a response. And then Sword, equip Sword for free. And then I can still double activate Captain America for 3 damage for Gwenna, 1 damage for Rofellos. So go to combat. Equip the sword. So our opponent could certainly chump, but that doesn't bother me. Alright, they're gonna take it, so maybe they've got a way to protect their team. Fog. That makes sense. Okay, so do I respond? I mean, I'll still answer their creatures here. Remove Tentacles, answer Rofellos, make sure that's dead. And then I can remove the sword. All for 1 mana, thanks to Training Grounds. Answer Gwenna. And then it's not going to be too difficult to re-equip next turn. Rofellos is back. But only temporarily. So 2 mana to equip the sword, can start there. And that works. So now at instant speed we can answer both of the opponent's creatures, since we can also split up 3 damage. So GT I can equip for free, or we can go for Tentacles. I think I would rather get the GT going just to control the board. Can go for more damage later. Attack. And then, I mean, they can jump if they want. They're definitely better off doing so. So we don't get to trigger the sword. Opponent had a safekeeping, which is why I didn't want to make the first move. So then now unequip the Sword of Fire and Ice. 1 here, 2 here. So then no counters on the GT either. Could just keep up the GT's ability in case we want to split up 2 more damage. Have plenty of mana to re-equip the sword next turn. opponent's gonna explore. So they're fighting the good fights, but yeah, they need some epic curve topper to stabilize them from here. Go to attackers, equip the tentacles, hit you for 10, get 2 GT counters finally, Sword of Fire and Ice triggers. And the Mighty Thor is a good one too. Okay, I think I'm fine playing the land out. So, as it stands, I can remove 6 mana worth of equipment for 6 more damage. I guess there's no real downside to chucking one of them now. And yeah, our opponent knows that they're dead. Sweet, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the play, facing a Storm. Alright. We have Stoneforge Mystic, Ironcrag, decent mana, and Feast and Famine could also come in handy. So decent hand. Depending on the opponent's build of Storm, we might want to get something different with a Stoneforge. The Conqueror's Flail can be a way to stop instants in my turn if we think they're running a bunch of counter spells. Although the more synergistic builds of Storm are pretty low on interaction, I would say. So then Stoneforge could also get one of the bigger living weapon equipments that we can put in play with its activated ability. Or we can get Colossus Hammer as something that can enhance Captain America for just 1 mana. Especially with the sword already granting some form of evasion. Either way, I could still start with an Ironcrag, a next turn Captain. So yeah, a couple ways to go about it. Or we could Stoneforge, get Cauldron Complete, for instance, and then try and put it in play next turn after playing Ironcrag. But it feels like I want to get the Captain going. So we'll not transform the Ironcrag just yet. Even though I could have equipped it right away. Opponent just setting up here with Farseek and now Iteration, so not going for Storm. Maybe they were missing a 4th land. And they also played Boseiju, which could have been a good answer to one of our equipments. Stoneforge into Sword is appealing because untapping 4 lands lets me play something afterwards. Like maybe Thor's Hammer, or now Fire and Ice, so we have all protections here if we get the swords going. Which sounds pretty good. Yeah, I can play Feast and Famine now. Which will let me untap my lands. Which then is still enough to play Fire and Ice and equip it. While the opponent has to discard. And our opponent did not like that and scoops it up. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play, facing Fin Fang Foom, a land destruction deck. So having a bunch of artifact mana is probably a good place to be. Although then again, they could also destroy artifacts specifically and still copy those. So no hand is really safe. My deck does not have a ton of basics. This hand is missing equipment. But if I find any tutor effects specifically, I can maybe get protection from red, and then they're gonna struggle to deal with my board. Then again, they could still destroy the equipment themselves. So I'll try it, but I'm not particularly confident. Start with a Surveil. Turn 2, get to maybe play a Signet. And then turn 3, we can unload most of our hand. Dalakos is more mana, which is not really what I need here. But it would normally be decent in the matchup. Also have to be very careful with artifact lanes in general. Can hang on to the Mox. Opponent with a Mind Stone, so they can play their commander next turn. Otawara can maybe bounce it. Okay, so in that case, Metalcraft is enabled. So I can play Talisman into Talisman into Captain America. Could have saved myself 1 damage by playing the Signet this turn as opposed to last turn. Opponent's got a couple burn spells here, it seems. Not a disaster, since we certainly have the mana to redeploy our commander. It's going to be a dual caster mage to copy the Chain Lightning. So Captain down. Back to the command zone. So just replay it, and then probably going to surveil end of turn. Still missing an equipment, which is usually the easiest part to get. And a Boomy Bash, dealing 4 damage. Yeah, that also answers it. Still have the mana to recast it. But yeah, not too many more times. Enlightened Tutor. Can get whatever equipment I want. It's still gonna take me 2 turns to deploy, but maybe that's good enough. So play the Captain. And then there's no real value to surveilling if I'm gonna tutor. But yeah, they could still have artifact removal that can get rid of any equipment I get. I'll take 2. Opponent might have some more burn spells in hand that they want to use to finish off the Captain. Now an Artisan can destroy a land. And goes for Thundering Falls. I mean, I can just get an expensive equipment as opposed to an equipment that gives protection from red. Like a Caldra Complete would make sense, since the equipment itself is indestructible. Yeah, I guess that makes sense here. I'll draw, and then I can cast it. I'll lose the Germ to protect the Captain. Hit you for 9. And now I can still maybe surveil end of turn. Keeping Otawara as a bounce spell in case we want that. Put on the Glimpsing. Finding a couple lands and a flashback. But there's no real answer here. Electrostatic Blast going face. They will get some Eldrazi tokens end of turn. So then the turn after they can maybe set something up with their commander. And got 1 surveil land left. And yeah, Ultima Weapon's a big one. So not gonna say no. Can also use the other ability to unequip and deal damage. But right now we can hit for 16, destroy maybe a token as opposed to the dual caster to deny an extra mana. Opponent falls to 4. And pass a turn. And that'll do it. Awesome. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw, facing Hei Bai once again. My hand's not bad. With a free Leyline Axe, an artifact land and a Mox Opal, we'll have Metalcraft enabled on turn 1. So that'll make white mana. And then, yeah, turn 2 Captain America. Could do some damage. Opponent with a Grazer. And open the Armory I could cast. And against Hei Bai with an early Grazer, what do we like? Can always get the Hammer as an answer to Hei Bai. That's still realistic to hardcast. Or we can go for one of the pro-green swords. Feast and Famine or Forge and Frontier. Kind of like the Forge and Frontier, since we'll have a good amount of mana to work with. And more mana creatures from the opponents. Alright, let's go for Captain America, play this on blue. And equip a Leyline Axe for free. So a turn 2, 5/5, double strike, trample. Now our opponent does get to play turn 3 Hei Bai. Maybe even flicker it. But double strike's also pretty good with all the swords triggering twice. A Northern Air Temple, briefly saw Swords to Plowshares flashing by. So I like my spot. Even found the Hammer. So still looking at Forge and Frontier. Although this can take out Hei Bai and then equip for free. I mean, that's a ton of damage. Might actually be better here. And also lessens any flicker shenanigans. Now, I do have to keep in mind that the Hammer is red, so I wouldn't be able to equip it at the same time as Forge and Frontier, since then the Hammer will fall off. So, deal 3 here, 2 here. I guess, let's see, with doubling damage... Actually, never mind, I should have only dealt 2 damage to the Grazer and trampled for 1 more, since the 2 damage would have gotten doubled to 4. So then the Grazer still would have died. Don't think it matters. Opponent still seems very dead here. If they do not have anything, can also make Captain unblockable, which is worth a shot. And our opponent scoops it up. Awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Facing Raw, Crackling Wit, so a blue-red spells deck. Our hand's alright. Both Talisman and Dalakos can ramp. I am missing an equipment, but there's a lot of those in the deck, and a bunch of tutors to find them. SRAM is decent, likely to get answered by a cheaper burn spell. And I'm still missing an equipment, so maybe it's not quite what I need here. And the Mighty Thor already draws cards if we can find the equipment. Alright, Mother of Runes, I still get to play after Talisman. So now our opponent needs to answer Mother of Runes, or else they may not get a chance to do so. Since she can also protect herself. So there goes a Lightning Strike, which could have taken out the Mighty Thor. Okay, so this turn, Captain America without an equipment to attach right away is less exciting. So maybe we like Dalakos, which can then help me cast an equipment if I draw into one. And I'll get to Surveil. Opponent using the treasure to play Raw. And makes a token. Alright, so an equipment here would be very nice. Let's get a Surveil land. Say no to a pathway. And it's a Signet, which I can still cast with a Dalakos and then empty out my hand. It's not ideal. The Mighty Thor specifically says non-token, so we can't flicker the otter tokens.
Together we can shift the current.
Alright, opponent now with Electro, and a Sword of Fire and Ice is pretty much our best possible draw. Assuming it resolves, which is not a given, but there's not too many answers for single blue. Get to draw, find Stoneforge Mystic, and yeah, opponent just immediately concedes, knowing about the protection from blue and red. But now with Stoneforge Mystic, we could get any number of powerful equipment, and from there, very quickly take over. So yeah, we got to see this Captain America equipment deck in action. And yeah, we've gotten a lot of powerful new equipment and various equipment synergies in recent sets. So the archetype is getting a lot of love, which makes it increasingly harder to build these equipment decks since we have so many options to choose from now. So it often boils down to which keywords you want to include in the deck, maybe a couple tutor effects to find them so you have access to them more reliably, and then ideally you have a few ways to discount the equip costs. This time we have it incorporated into our commander, so we don't need to have as many of those effects otherwise, but if your commander doesn't let you equip for free, then you might want to have a few more of those effects instead. But yeah, for now, I want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.